Welcome to the Militia Gaming Community. I'm Trigger, and these are my full run results for this week's Hyper Chase Summit in the Crew 2. Let's go! Alright, so let's get started. The first event is the Speedtrap called Temecula Wineries. Now, I usually start these speed traps by going to the back of that green circle on the minimap. That's as far away as you can go without it kicking you from the event. So after that, this one's pretty simple, man. Just speed up and make sure you make this turn coming down the hill. And then when I'm clear of this road, I nos to the finish line. 327.6 miles per hour was a good enough score to get me over 100,000 points. I got 125,698, so I just moved on. I wasn't even worried about doing this over again. Alright, next up is the Big Sur Escape. I used the brand new Bugatti, and my tactic was to hit this escape and turn immediately right. After that, it's really just about not hitting traffic, not slowing down too much by running into walls on these corners, and getting around 4,000 yards away. So notice I hit the wall a little bit there. That's considered a mistake. Hit the wall a little bit there. I could have taken that turn a little better. I missed that guy luckily, but he was kind of in the way. Not hit any traffic so far, which is great. This turn I take on the wall because it's a little bit faster than actually slowing down and taking the turn normally. But other than that, this was it. This was the run. It was my first attempt, and I hit over 4,000 points, or 4,000 yards away, which gave me enough to be fine in the summit. I just really shoot for that 100,000 point mark every event. So 4,500 yards away, more than enough to get the job done. I actually ended up with 122,000 points. I'm good with that, and I moved on. Alright, so for this river slalom, again, I'm using a street car because it's the only vehicle class where I have a full set bonus of score breaker, which doubles your points in this event. So you definitely need to use that. I would rather use a slower car with that than a faster car without it. And the points that I got on this could have been better. I feel like my driving wasn't really that solid. I could have hit these edge ones a little bit nicer and maybe cut through the water just a little bit cleaner. That being said, I did score fairly high. I think my time was not that interesting, but the points I scored was somewhere around 17,000 points. Again, that's being doubled by that set bonus multiplier. So I actually really scored around 8,000 or 8,500 points, but because I had that set multiplier, that doubled my points, which gives me a really good score for the summit, 148,930. That thing is 100% necessary for a good score on this particular summit event. Alright, moving on to literally the funniest race of this summit. And by funny, I just mean there's a ridiculous number of shortcuts that are included in this race. It's just crazy how the community has sort of hacked this race. So anyway, the start is nothing to be excited about, but going through some of these turns, I've noticed a few things. These first few turns are no big deal, but when you get closer to the checkpoint that we're coming close to here in just a moment, you can actually cut through the tents, and I didn't. I actually slowed down, so I may run this again. You can cut through those yellow tents a little better than I did, but going across this field is good, and then you're going to want to slow down immediately and take this turn on the right. Now, taking this is pretty funny. I mean, you really just reset your car in this crack, but it puts you on the road right above. It cuts out quite a bit of time. And there's also a shortcut to the left there. Actually, if you go up that hill, you can reset your car and it puts you on the road again. It doesn't cut out a lot of time, but it's definitely seconds, and it would make a difference in points. But I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was consistent enough to recommend taking that cut, so I didn't do that in my summit guide. But you do want to jump over those rocks like you just saw, go on the left of this checkpoint, hit the rocks to go over these rocks, and reset your car. It puts you right in front of that checkpoint. So that's a really good shortcut. That one cuts out a lot of time, as well as some of the other shortcuts that are in this race. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like running this Jesco on this race. I feel like it's a little heavy. I feel like I would have used a different car better. But anyway, this next shortcut through the dirt was very easy. This is one of the easiest ones in the game. You just head straight towards the checkpoint and then just continue. Just make sure you don't hit these rocks right here in this field. It's kind of tough sometimes because there's only one little space to squeeze through. Then you hit the checkpoint and reset. So anyway, I'm gonna let this run finish out. There's only one more shortcut left on this run, and you'll see it here on this upcoming turn. Not this cut, but the next turn, I go outside of the barriers to the left of the rocks and through the trees. So that shortcut is necessary. It takes a lot of time off the right side of the road. I feel like it definitely does better. I could have not hit that rock though. That would have been smarter to get back on the road faster, but it is what it is. All right, I'll let this run play out and I'll catch up with you on the next one. Alright, this next event is literally the most boring event in the entire summit. This race is basically all about top speed. If you have Nitro Chemist, you're going to do way better than someone without it. And I unfortunately do not have Nitro Chemist for the hypercars, so I feel like my time really wasn't that good. Although I still scored high enough for 100,000 points. This race is so easy, there's no challenging corners. All of every single corner in the race can be taken at full speed. So personally, this race is extremely boring. I didn't like playing it just because there's nothing challenging about the race at all. That being said though, it's an easy 100,000 points for the summit, if not more, depending on if you have Nitro Chemist or not. But keep in mind guys, if you can manage to get platinum on this summit, you're going to get rewarded with a Nitro Chemist set for hypercars, so it would actually do you a lot of good to get platinum in this particular summit. I'll go ahead and let this race play out because I want to show you these full runs, but there's really not a lot of commentary left for this particular race. Alright, this next event is a hypercar chase, and these chases are very different every time you play them. Sometimes your cars will not spawn in fast enough and you'll have to drive for a while before you see another one. So the time that it takes to finish these is different every single time. I did pretty good on this one. I was able to get it done in under a minute, which was my goal personally, but I feel like it could be faster. I could probably run this again and do it better next time. But I just want to remind you of something that I have to remind myself of a lot when I'm driving on these events, and that is do not wait for the villain cars that get behind you. You got to try to keep them in front of you, and if they do get behind you, don't slow down and wait for them, even if they only have 1 bar left on their health. It's not worth the time that you're going to spend waiting for those cars. And I think I did it a couple of times in this run, or maybe possibly in another run later on in the summit, but basically you don't want to wait for them. It just slows you down, you don't get to the next car fast enough, and you end up wasting a lot of time. So anyway, I got lucky because that second car I just hit crashed all the way, as opposed to just going down to like 1 bar of health. That could have really made my time longer, but 122,000 points in this summit. I'm super good with that, and we move on to the next one. So on this next event, I actually made a mistake on my summit guide. I gave you the cuts and the advice for Mother Road 66, the street race. However, the event in the summit is actually Mother Road 66, the hypercar race. So in my guide, I recommended that you use the Corvette Stingray because it's a street race car, and actually in this video, I'm using the Ford GT. Now those races are completely different races. The hypercar race is a different race than the street car race. So my advice for these is going to be different. Now in this race, with this Ford GT, there's not really a lot of sections to cut out. You may be able to cut a few corners here and there, but there aren't any real tricky sections. You're just gonna have to race this as fast as you possibly can and try not to make too many mistakes. And that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and let my full run play out, and if you have any questions regarding this mistake, you're welcome to hit me up in my DMs, either in Instagram or Twitter. This next race, called South Trip, I also use my Ford GT. You're going to notice a lot of Ford GT action for this summit because a lot of the races actually require you to use an interception vehicle. This particular race does have a couple of cuts in it, and I'll point them out as we get closer to them. I believe one is around 18 or 19%, and then one that shortly follows it right afterwards. You're gonna cut across a field, if I'm not mistaken, and then you cut across the field on the opposite side of the road. And then after that, it's really just kind of wide open. There are some other little things that I will mention as we get to them, but for the most part, it's pretty easy. It's just about staying on the road and trying to keep your speed as high as possible. So I think coming up here at, yeah, it's about 20%. You can cut to the left a little bit, go off this road, and then cut back to the right and go off this road. It's not that big of a deal, but it definitely cuts off a couple of seconds. I know I lost control right here on this turn and slid out. The rain really does change things when you're driving. It's not a huge change, but it's enough to make me lose control there. All right, so there's one last cut that I'll tell you about as soon as we get there, but it's gonna be a while. I think it's at like 80 or 85% of the race. So until then, hang tight and watch this run, and I'll be right back. Alright, so it's coming up after this turn that I took poorly, and you go down this little hill. At this next checkpoint, you're going to veer to the left into the dirt, and then head directly for the next checkpoint and reset your car when you get there. It is a lot faster to do it that way than it is to take the road around. You can also kind of cut through the grass here and cut through the grass on this side as well, but for the most part, that's it, man. That is the shortcut of the race, and I almost missed that checkpoint, which I was very nervous about, because if I did, I really would have had to restart my run. I just left it. It could have been shorter, it could have been faster, but I left it alone because my total score when I got down to the finish line was okay. I was happy with it. I think I got 116 or something like that, 116,000. But yeah, this race was decently fast. It really wasn't top-notch or top-tier, but it was enough to get the job done. I think anything under 4 minutes gets you 100,000 points, and that's what I went for on this one. I think, yeah, my score was 116, so I'm good with that. I just allowed that to happen, and we just moved on. The final event of the summit is a hypercar chase event. This is the new one for this week, called Highspeed Takedown. My advice for this is basically the same as my advice for the previous chase, and pretty much all chases. You want to keep the villain cars in front of you, try not to brake to slow down. You want to keep your speed high. Even if you injure a villain car down to 1 health bar, You don't want to slow down too much to wait for them. You want to try your best to keep everything in front of you. Now that being said, I'll go ahead and let you watch my run. It wasn't that fast, but it also wasn't slow. I think I did a minute on this one, or somewhere close to a minute, which was plenty enough to score high enough in the summit. I'll let this play out, and I will catch you with the summary at the end.
Great work. Well done, Agent. Excellent move. True operator. Down they go. Vault Corp thanks you. You scored again. Congratulations.
Alright, so my full summit results are 1.2 million. It puts me in 12th place out of 1,000 players. There's usually somewhere between 15,000 and 25,000, 20,000 players on Xbox, so I think I'm good to stay where I am. I may need to redo a couple of races. I do see some mistakes that I made. But I'm going to stick with this probably for the entire week. I should end up in Platinum. I do expect a lot more players to be playing this, as the Platinum rewards are pretty good. It's nice to have a full Nitro set for hypercars just given to you because you've made Platinum. So anyway, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. I know it's a long video. If you have any questions, again, hit me up on DM, either in Instagram or Twitter. And shout out to all the Militia subs. Thank you so much for watching another one. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.